On a chilly Saturday evening, in a small American town, where everyone somehow knew everyone's business, 36-year-old single dad Ethan Carter stood in front of the mirror of his tiny bathroom, trying to tame his hair into something that looked less exhausted. He hadn't been on a date in 4 years, not since his wife passed away suddenly, leaving him with their 5-year-old daughter Lily, a mortgage, and a heart stitched together with memories. Tonight wasn't supposed to be a date. At least that's what his co-workers insisted when they invited him to what they claimed was a friendly group dinner. But Ethan had noticed their smirks, the way they exchanged glances, whispering as if they were planning something behind his back. He knew that people pitied him, always assuming he was lonely, broken, or incomplete. Truth was, he wasn't looking for love. All he wanted was to give Lily a childhood filled with softness, safety, and a father who showed up every single day. Still, he agreed to the dinner because he trusted his friend Mark, who had been there for him when the world was crashing down. Maybe company would be nice for a change, he told himself. But when Ethan walked into the warm candlelit restaurant on Main Street, the one with wooden floors that creaked like elderly men sighing in rocking chairs, he immediately felt something was off. The table wasn't a group table. It was set for two. 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 candles flickering as if stifling laughter. And sitting alone at the table, nervously wringing her hands, was a woman he had never seen before. She was plus-size, wearing a simple blue dress that hugged her softly rounded stomach. She looked up the moment she heard him approach. Her eyes, big, brown, and impossibly kind, widened with embarrassment. She tried to smile, but it trembled at the edges. Ethan's stomach twisted, not because of her, but because he understood instantly what had happened. They had set him up. Worse, they had set her up. She stood quickly, almost knocking over her water glass. "You must be Ethan," she said in a small voice, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Her apology was like she thought she owed him an apology simply for existing, for being the girl chosen for a man they assumed would reject her. Ethan's first instinct was anger. He wanted to storm out and tell them off. But then Lily's voice rang in his mind, the little mantra he repeated to her every night before bed. A kindness first, always. He breathed in and saw Mia properly, her trembling hands, her shallow breaths, the way she stood as if bracing to be judged. She wasn't the problem. She was the one who had been hurt by the setup just as much as he was. Maybe more. He placed a gentle hand on the back of the chair and offered a smile that reached his eyes. He said softly. She looked confused. "You are?" "Yes," he said, pulling out the chair for her. "And I'm starving." She let out a nervous laugh, sat down, and for the first time her shoulders relaxed just a little. The waiter approached, smugly glancing toward the corner where Ethan's co-workers sat pretending to be absorbed in their menus. Ethan ignored them. Dinner began awkwardly, as most blind dates do. Mia spoke quietly, choosing her words like someone who had learned to walk on shards of glass her whole life. She told him she worked at a local shelter helping abandoned animals. She loved painting, watercolor mostly, but she said her art wasn't good enough to show anyone. She lived alone with her cat Pickles, who, she admitted, hated everyone but her. Ethan found himself smiling. Not out of pity, but because her humility was disarming in a world where everyone faked confidence. She wasn't trying to impress him, or sell herself, or shrink herself into whatever shape people preferred. She was simply real. The more she talked, the more Ethan realized how long it had been since he'd sat across from someone and felt truly seen, not as a widower, not as a struggling dad, but as a person. Mia asked about Lily, and unlike others, she didn't speak in that tone that sounded like forced sympathy. Instead, she asked what Lily liked to draw, whether she liked ice cream, and what made her laugh. It made Ethan's chest warm, because almost nobody asked about Lily without tiptoeing around the subject of his wife. Halfway through dinner, an unexpected tear slid down Mia's cheek. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed, but Ethan leaned forward, concerned. "Hey, what's wrong?" She shook her head. Nothing. I'm not used to someone letting me finish my sentences." That simple confession broke something inside. What kind of world teaches a woman that her voice is a privilege instead of a right? Before he could respond, he heard laughter from across the room, his co-workers. snickering, whispering, watching. That did it. He stood abruptly, stunning everyone, and walked over to their table. Mia watched nervously as he confronted them. But Ethan's voice wasn't angry. It was calm, steady, and full of conviction. "I just want to know," he asked them openly, "what exactly did you expect me to do? Walk out? Laugh? Treat her like she's some kind of joke? Because that says a lot more about you than it does about her." The entire restaurant went silent. Someone dropped a fork. Mark swallowed hard. "Ethan, we were just trying to help." "Help who?" He cut in. "Me? Or your own egos?" His voice trembled now, but not with rage, with heartbreak. "You set me up with someone you thought I wouldn't want, and you didn't even consider how it would make her feel. Do you have any idea how cruel that is?" A woman at another table nodded silently. A man murmured, "He's right." His coworkers shrank back, unable to meet his eyes. Ethan returned to the table, afraid Mia would want to leave, but when he saw her face, her watery smile, the awe in her eyes, he felt something shift. Not romantic love, not yet, but something beautiful. Respect, connection, recognition. "Mia," he said softly, "I'm so sorry you were dragged into this." She shook her head again, but this time with more confidence. Maybe I was meant to be here," she whispered. Not for a date, but to meet someone who actually sees people." They decided to leave the restaurant and walk to the small park across the street. It was late, and fairy lights strung across the trees made the whole place glow like a gentle constellation. They sat on a bench, watching the reflection of lights dance on the pond. Mia talked about growing up being bullied for her weight, how people treated her like she was invisible until they wanted to point and laugh. Ethan shared how helpless he felt raising Lily alone, terrified he would fail her. And somehow, sharing their broken pieces made the night feel whole. The emotional climax hit when Ethan said something that would later make Mia cry for days. Not out of sadness, but out of healing. She told him softly, her voice trembling, "The people always assume I'm the worst choice in the room." Ethan looked at her, his eyes steady, his voice gentle but firm. "Then they're blind," he said, "because kindness is never the worst choice. And you've shown more heart tonight than most people show in a lifetime." She covered her mouth with her hand as tears streamed down. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever seen her for who she was rather than what she looked like. Just then a small voice called out, "Daddy?" It was Lily, running from Mark's car. He had driven her over, guilt all over his face. She ran straight into Ethan's arms, then turned to Mia, examining her curiously. Mia bent down slowly. "Hi, Lily." Lily instantly smiled. "You're pretty." And in that innocent moment, every insecurity Mia carried melted into the night air. Ethan knew then, and Mia knew too, that children often see the truth adults are too broken to recognize. Beauty lived in the heart long before it lived in the mirror. They spent an hour talking, laughing softly, watching Lily show Mia her drawings. When Mark approached to apologize, Ethan held Mia's hand for the first time, not romantically, but protectively. A quiet message. "I'm with you. I see." Later, as he walked her to her car, Ethan said quietly, "Tonight wasn't a date, but if you'd ever want one, a real one, I'd like that." Mia looked up at him surprised, touched her eyes glowing like sunrise after a long winter. "I'd like that too," she whispered. Weeks later, the town was still buzzing. Not because a single dad went on a date, but because he defended a woman everyone underestimated, and because that woman walked into a blind date as a stranger, but walked out needed, valued, seen. Their story became a gentle lesson whispered across dinner tables, shared in church pews, and taught unintentionally to children who overheard their parents. That compassion doesn't require perfection, only courage. And so the single dad who thought he'd forgotten how to love learned to open his heart again, not with fireworks or destiny, but with kindness. And the woman who spent her whole life shrinking finally realized she never had. In the end, the setup meant as a joke became the beginning of something healing, honest, and profoundly human. A reminder that love doesn't always enter loudly. It often shows up softly, in the places we least expect, carried by people we never saw coming.